So here are the slides for today's session. What we're going to look at today is I want to talk to you a bit about creating an automation plan for your business. I want to have a look at automation in accounting processes. We're obviously an accountancy firm, so it's a good place for us to start. I'm going to look at something to do with automated invoice scanning. I know one person on the call is very proficient at this already. Looking at automated workflows, and we're going to have a little bit of talk about automating marketing as well. And then we're going to get stuck into the online demo where I'll show you some of the tools, techniques, some of the bits of software that we're using. It's got some live data in there as well, so you can actually see what's going on as well. Fundamentally, what is automation? It's a buzz phrase we hear all of the time being used. Effectively, you're going to use a piece of software to replace the human element. And ultimately, this is going to save time, staff time, and obviously save us money. How I like to think about this is with my own team is we're removing the mundane. We're removing just the constant sort of moving data from one system to another and getting a computer system to do it. That means we can be much more focused on the things that are important to us, and the things that are important to us are our clients. And we want to be focused on the clients. We don't want to be employing people to move data from one place to another. That's the kind of the general gist of it. So people talk about artificial intelligence. I mean, we're not at the point where computers can think. Yes, I suppose I am talking about what the press call artificial intelligence, but try not to think it in terms of those as it's a set of rules that a piece of software is following. It's sort of interpreting data and it's been taught to do that. So I think the kind of ideal place for us to start today is to talk about making a plan for it. The first thing is always start small and look at what software systems you have in place. Most businesses, there are one or two exceptions to this, will already be using bits and bobs of software. Number one, pretty much everyone has an email account. So what is that platform that you're sat on at the moment? You might be using Mailchimp, for example. You might be using Xero for your accounts, but they're not really sort of interconnected, and you want to sort of get to that point. So if you look at what you've got, you can actually work out how we can make that system or that process a bit more automated. One of the key things is this thing called software as a service. It's software that sits on the cloud. And what I mean by that is something like the Gmail platform. That is software as a service. It sits out on the cloud somewhere. It's not installed on your own computer. So we go to a web address to access it. The other thing as well is start asking yourself some questions. Are you inputting data from one system into another? The answer to that is yes. I'm sure automation can help you. Have you ever timed how long something takes? We did this with purchase invoices. How long does it take from a piece of paper arriving at the office to actually processing it through to the payment? Getting the stopwatch out and timing that, it's really exciting stuff, but you'd be amazed what you can sort of achieve. And I did a series of lectures for Northumbria University for something called the Small Business Leadership Program. And someone emailed me after I did the section on automation for them and said, "You've saved me 2 days a week just on processing purchase invoices." It was, I mean, amazing stuff just by using a piece of software to save that sort of time. And they were incredibly sort of grateful for that sort of me highlighting that, because they'd lost a lot of staff due to the pandemic and they'd been really, really struggling with it. I love using a whiteboard. I think my team, it's like, oh, should we write this down on the whiteboard? I think that, you know, this is how the sigh, oh my God, he's on the whiteboard again. I can see something I've jotted on the whiteboard just on my wall yesterday. Just trying to get it clear in my head what I'm doing. Whiteboards are really, really useful, like mind mapping and flow charts to work out how do things sort of fit together. And if you're sort of mapping out a customer's journey, you know, what happens? How did we find that customer? What was the first point of interaction? What are those first points of interaction that we have with our customers, and how do we get them? And then what happens after that? You know, do we put them into some sort of proposal management system, a CRM system? And then how do we get them the quotation? And then how do we communicate with them after that? What are the steps? What are the bits of management software are you using in there? You know, how does email fit into that? Map it all out on a whiteboard, take a photograph of it. Even if you've sort of not got time to deal with the huge big picture at this moment in time, just work it out and sort of start drawing up a document. I have sort of little working documents where I sort of come up with ideas and I'll jot them down into one place and then I can revisit them later. Fundamentally, if you build solid processes for your business, then you'll be in a much better position. Something that I've learned over kind of the last few years. My original business was in kind of software engineering, media, building websites, things for people. I think fundamentally that business would have weathered the previous recession a bit better if we'd had solid processes. And that was one of the things when I changed career into accountancy that I went about, is actually building really, really solid processes for what actually happens. How do we do that work? And it's been much easier to bring staff and team members in. But if you've got those established processes, then it's easier to build the automation around them as well. The other thing is listen out for the same question being asked several times. And sort of interlinked with that is maybe pay attention to things that don't go to plan. I'll give you a little example. Is we would quite often win a new client, and within sort of 10 minutes of them accepting the proposal, they'd pick up the phone to us. And whoever picks up the phone would say, who are you? You know, I'm your new client. Oh, really? Are you? Oh, I didn't know. So we actually have a piece of automation that it sends a message around to everyone to say, we've won a new client, here's the link to their job. So we never have that situation. And I think that's listening out to the same things that are happening time and time again, the same questions. And obviously that's not the best customer journey. It's not, we're not sort of delivering outstanding service by doing that. So watching very carefully what's going on can help you, and using automation, it's those things that at the moment they might be hard for you to deliver and you know you should be doing them, but you're not sure how to kind of approach them as well. And then allocate some time. Busy business owners, you know, how the hell do we allocate time? Well, if you can sort of take a big deep breath and actually attack some of this automation, it will save you time in the long run. It will give you the time back, and I will absolutely demonstrate that to you shortly. So I think everything I do, I always like to sort of show people what we've done. And one of the key moves that we did is we brought in this piece of software called Practice Ignition. It's a piece of cloud quotation software. It's incredibly powerful software. We're under an obligation to provide letters of engagement due to anti-money laundering legislation. So we were drawing them up on PDFs. We were having to send them out through electronic signature software. This allowed us to build up a suite of services. It allowed us to create standardized pricing for our clients, build up proposals. It handled the letter of engagement. It built it up automatically, depending on which services you took. It customized the letter, put different terms of business in there. It handled the electronic signature. It also gives me, this is just demo data I've got here, but it shows me when I log in what we're going to make, not just today, but in the future as well. I mean, it's absolute magic. And we've got this on ours, we're off to the right-hand side. I've got the pipeline. How many open proposals have we got with people? How quickly do they accept a proposal? What was the accepted total? How many clients we've got, whether that's going up or down. But this piece of software, part of the reason we chose it is because of the integrations. And that is the key thing, is look at the software you've got. And if you put in the name of the software and you say, what are the integrations? And I've got an example of this shortly when we get into the demo. Have a look at what else it integrates to. One of the great things that this piece of software does is it integrates with our accountancy software, which is called Xero. So at the end of the month, it produces all of our bills for us. Now, we can have them so they're completely and utterly automated and they go out to our clients. However, we don't do that. I think automation can be taken too far. You might have a standard business model where everything is a set price, and you could do that, no problem at all. But I think it's better sometimes for a human eye to cast over an invoice. Some of our invoices can be quite large, over £1,000 in a month. So it's worth just sort of having a good look at, you know, getting a human eye to just sort of review that kind of information. This is just an example of one piece of software, and it's more geared towards accountancy firms, but lots of this software exists for different industries. I've got an example shortly for a law firm. I've got an example for someone who is a tradesman, you know, someone like a roofer or a plasterer or a painter and decorator, something like that. Lots of this software exists. This software also integrates with other applications as well. We were for a while using a project management piece of software that it would set up all of our jobs for us automatically. So depending on which service someone was taking, it would automatically create the jobs for our team to be done and actually allocate them to the team as well. So that's a fantastic example of automation. It's the piece of software is sort of removing a lot of the kind of the heartache and the problems that we've got sort of day to day. It's very, very functional, but it's also doing other things behind the scenes as well. And it's talking to other bits and bobs of programs that we've got running in the background. One of the things that I sort of should mention is part of our model when we came to look at automation was about converting watchers into buyers, and practice ignition is, imagine it's right at the forefront. It's when customers are, you know, clients are asking for, potential clients are asking for quotations. That is a great point to start an automation process off. There is actually another layer, which I'll show you in a minute, before all of that needs to be considered. But our kind of key goal to all of it is we've got these potential clients and we're trying to sell to them. But what we really wanted to do with our automation is put another step before all of that, and it's about educate. And I'm doing this bit now for you. You know, I'm recording the seminar. The people who couldn't make it, I will pass that on to them on an email. And we're trying to provide education, and it's education that we give out freely to people, but it allows us to build certain steps of education, and then when we eventually sell to people, we will continue that process of education all of the time. So we're feeding back into that, and hopefully if we get all of these steps right, then people will talk about us, and it's clearly working for us. We've been growing quite steadily over the last couple of years. Over the last sort of 12 months, we've gone from 5 members of staff to 8. So it is working for us. Let me just show you how an example of some data flows that we've got going on at Orange Umbrella. So I've put right at the top there, Facebook ads. There are other methods in which we drive traffic or get people to engage with us, but Facebook ads seemed a logical place because I've used them for today's webinar. We'll drive them into probably one of 2 places. One is 10 to 8, which is our appointment booking software, and the other would be, if we were doing an in-person seminar, we'd use Eventbrite. If it's online, we'd use Zoom. So the data flows into kind of these two bits of systems, and what we do is we're pushing data into Mailchimp. So as soon as someone has interacted with us, we put them onto our events mailing list, because, as I said in the previous slide, it's all about, for us, education. We've got to sort of demonstrate our knowledge. We've got to continually mentor. It's part of one of our key values as an organization. So we put them into Mailchimp so we can start that education process. We then, obviously, right at the bottom here, we've got kind of seminars, newsletters, and what we're hoping to do is actually then build a proposal, build up a letter of engagement for our services to look after someone's accounts or personal tax return, and that's all done through our practice ignition software. When someone accepts a proposal with us, we have you'll notice I put the word automated drip, sort of the arrow between practice ignition and Mailchimp there. We basically segment our clients. So, for example, and I will show you this, if someone is forming a new limited company, they get a series of automated emails, and those automated emails are really going back to that planning stage I was talking about. I was listening out for the same question being asked time and time again. And we were always being asked, where do we go and open a bank account? And that's one of the things in our automated drip. And a lot of people don't understand the responsibilities of a director. Let's put that into an automated email that goes out as well. Also, when someone accepts a proposal, we use a system called Trello for project management. It creates Trello cards with sets of checklists in there. It will talk to Xero, obviously I mentioned that before, and create our invoices for us. It will send a Slack channel. So Slack is a chat platform and internal messaging system that we use. And we have a channel called New Clients. And that's that problem I was discussing before, where a new client picks up the phone and no one knows who they are. It sends that message around to everyone within 2 minutes of the client accepting the proposal. And then we use a time tracking product called Harvest to track the time we spend with each client as well. Most of our stuff's fixed fee, but we need to keep an eye on actually how much time we've spent to make sure it's in proportion. But it will automatically set up the clients and set up the jobs based on the proposal as well. It's all practically automated, that entire process. We're involved in that process. So 10 to 8, if someone books an appointment with me, I'm spending the time with the client and advising them and giving them sort of upfront sort of knowledge, and it's starting that education process, I suppose. But I don't need to worry about getting their data into Mailchimp. I don't need to worry about getting their data into Practice Ignition. Those steps are happening automatically. When we come to do a proposal for a client, the initial stages are already done for us. And when that client accepts, we don't need to worry about, what we bill in the client this month. Oh God, we've got to create time tracking categories. Oh my God, do the team know that we've got a new client? It's just happening automatically. The Trello system's fantastic. We know who does certain aspects of the job. So if it's a new client, we have what's called a new client onboarding job. So Rob, my colleague, looks after that area of it, and he has a column in Trello, and it automatically creates a Trello card for the new client onboarding, and it has some pre-built checklists in there. So he's automatically aware that he needs to do some work on that client and gets the ball moving. We're fundamentally spending more time with the clients. So that's an example of one of our kind of data flows that we've got going. I'll never make it as a graphic designer, I might add. I know that probably that diagram might be a bit of a pig's ear, but it's the best I can do. What I always say about automation, though, is to pick low-hanging fruit. So we use a system called Dext. It was formerly Receipt Bank, and it's for purchase invoice scanning. It's really, really exciting stuff, processing purchase invoices, but it's what I call low-hanging fruit. It's an easy thing to automate within your business. So if you look at these, I just went into our Dext account last night and pulled these statistics off. We can see how many clients are active. So if these are clients who are actually submitting their purchase invoices to us electronically and they appear in their account system as if by magic, wonderful. 75.9% of everything is a digital submission, which is fantastic. And auto-publish, and this is where the real clever stuff is starting to happen. Dext is pulling out the data and extracting and doing some of the data entry for us, and it's effectively coming into the Dext platform and appearing in the account system sort of pre-filled in. You can have this coming through where it'll even identify the payment out of the bank and auto match it to the payment. I don't really like that because, again, going back to automation can be taken too far. I want one of my highly skilled bookkeepers, my wife Sue or Nicola, to be casting their eye over that invoice saying, do I agree with what this computer system has done? And you'll see there we've set up a whole host of supplier rules to treat things the same way. So the piece of software is choosing the wrong thing, and we've gone in and set up some rules and said this is how we want to treat it. So we've got 1,665 rules set up across our various clients as well. This is kind of what that workflow looks like. So if you imagine on the left-hand side, we've got purchase invoices. So we've got really categorized those into kind of three areas. We've got large organizations, we've got paper receipts and things that arrive in the post. We try and keep that to a minimum. And we've got our SME suppliers, where they tend to give us some invoice terms and email us an invoice. If it's a large organization, most large organizations produce digital bills through an online portal login, and we use a system called Invoice Fetch, whereby we connect up that supplier's account to this Dext software, and it detects when the invoice is generated, and it automatically goes and collects it and puts it into our account software. Paper receipts, we use a mobile app. We have the paper brigade at the end of the year. They come in with their shoeboxes, and we basically throw it on the floor. The whole team approach with an app on the mobile phone, take all of the pictures, and then we destroy the paperwork. Ultimately, we will probably keep it for a couple of weeks, just in case there's a scanning problem, someone's moved the phone too quickly, it's come through blurry, anything like that. We sort of we do keep it for a couple of weeks, and then we bin it. Dext is HMRC approved, so we don't keep any paper. There's, you know, considering we have something like getting close to 300 clients on board, we have very little paper in our office, which is sort of unheard of for traditional accountants. For SME suppliers, we try to encourage them to email directly into the Dext system, so it doesn't go to any individual in the organization. They're given a special email address, and it gets sent off into Dext. And again, it just appears in our accountancy software. What Dext is doing is it's doing the data entry, it's attaching an image, and I'm going to show you this. I've put there as well at the 0 stage, there's some sort of human approval. You can fully automate it if you want. It's not for my taste. And then we also use, or we've been encouraging, we don't use it particularly, we do have it integrated, a system called Wise. It was built by TransferWise, integrates with 0. We might have, say, 30 invoices to pay at the end of the week, or we don't have many because they're on direct debit, which is why we don't use it much. But for clients where they're paying 30, 40 people at the end of the week, they just click all of the invoices that they want to do. They send a back submission file to TransferWise, and they make one payment out of the bank, and TransferWise then deal with all of the payments, and then obviously the money reaches our SME suppliers. That's the normal people who are being paid that way. So that's a really, it might seem complicated, but it's really easy to sort of automate something that's really dull and boring in an organization, and that's where that person had said to me they'd say 2 days a week, which is quite remarkable. Just to sort of expand upon this is within that Dext system, this is like a key problem that we face. This is 2 pages of a 5-page ASDA invoice, and it's mainly food for a cafe, and they're buying all sorts of different stuff, cleaning products, the food, there's alcoholic drinks, and of course in their accounts they want to separate it all out, and some of it's 0 rated for VAT because it's essential food. You know, all that debate about, is it a cake or is it a biscuit? We have to split all of that out, and it was taking one of my members of the team an hour a couple of years ago to enter this sort of invoice and create this invoice in their account system. 1 hour. But with Dext, they have this tool called multi-line item extraction, and it will pull out every single line and correctly treat it for VAT. And we can then give it a bit of education about exactly which area of the accounts we want certain items going into. It's a game changer. From 1 hour, we're now only spending 10 minutes doing it. It's a fantastic sort of tool. The one thing I'm just going to say very quickly before we get into the online demo is, what is an API? I might use this phrase, and you might see, I think there was one of my slides where I mentioned API. It stands for Application Programming Interface. Now, if you're choosing a piece of cloud software to use in your business, it's a good idea to see if it's got what's called an API, because I'm going to show you a tool later. There's a great frustration that I had a few years ago where we would have 2 bits of software, and they both had APIs, application programming interfaces. but they didn't actually talk to each other. There was no direct connection. The developers hadn't built a direct connection. They obviously decided it wasn't where they were wanting to go, but there were the two right bits of software for our organization. So we use a piece of software called Zapier, and Zapier makes that happen. And it fundamentally only works if there is an API connection or an API available. So it's the only one bit of like techie stuff that you sort of need to be aware of and wrap your head around to do with automation is quite important. So I'm going to go online now. This is the bit that could go horribly wrong. I've got a couple of slides afterwards just to show you some outputs of some of the kind of bits of automations as well, just so you've got a bit of a better idea actually what happens in some of the other systems that I can't actually show you online as well. So, right, let me just stop the share, and now I'm going to change that to my browser window. Okay, so hopefully you can see my browser window okay. This is the kind of practice ignition software you use, and I've navigated to their integrations page just to give you an illustration of what you're looking for when you're choosing a piece of software. So it says here, connect practice ignition to your favorite apps. And if we look down, well, we've obviously got, I've mentioned before, the Xero integration there. The Zapier integration, which is always one that I am looking for. And then some other things. We were using Xero Practice Manager. It was great when we were a smaller organization. It's not really working for us now. You'll notice Trello is not on the list, and I mentioned before Trello, and you'll also notice that Slack isn't on the list as well. So we've used this clever thing called Zapier to make those processes happen, which again, I will show you very shortly. So you might be thinking, well, hang on a minute, Justin, I'm not an accountancy practice. I can't use practice ignition. So I've opened this one, which is HubSpot, really popular CRM. There's other ones out there like Salesforce, Zoho, lots of providers, and most of them have API connections. So it doesn't really matter what software you've got. And if you quickly just sort of do a Google search and say, you know, what applications, and again, here's HubSpot's list of all the applications that it integrates with, which is absolutely vast. So these bits of software are incredibly powerful. If you can find a piece of software off the shelf that absolutely integrates with everything you need, it's absolutely perfect. What you need to understand is, I think it takes a time to manage these bits and bobs of software. You might look at the features and think, yeah, that's wonderful for my business. And that a key mistake our clients have made is they've taken on bits of software and they're so complicated for their business that they sort of can't manage them. So I would definitely encourage you to just try and maybe initially find something that's simple, maybe fairly inexpensive, but it's got those integrations there just to make it more manageable. Here's another example. So we're working with a firm of licensed conveyancers, and I know they use this system called Perfect Portal, which is like a quotation management system. But again, it's got some wonderful integrations in there. They use a piece of software called Leap Legal Software. So it's when someone accepts, it creates the case file for them. It's, you know, there's lots of integrations for it. Here's another one, which the integrations on this one aren't actually wonderful. They're fairly limited. Called Tradify, which is for sort of your traditional tradesperson, your electrician, plumber, plasterer, that sort of person. It's job management software effectively. And I think Tradify have got a sort of a model that these tradespeople have very little. Fundamentally, that's part of the reason they became a tradesperson, is they didn't want to do administration. They wanted to be working with the hands. What they've forgotten about is that when you're running a business, that's pretty important stuff to do, unfortunately. So they've sort of built that piece of software up. I think improvements via process can really help. So if you can give someone a piece of simple software that's not necessarily got all the bells and whistles with integrations. It's probably they know their market quite well. Let's have a quick look at something different now. Let's have a look at Dext, which was formerly Receipt Bank, and we're off to a bad start because I've managed to already breach GDPR. We'll maybe not be sharing this recording. Okay, so Dext is really, really simple. We've got add documents there. And you can see the methods in which we can push documents in. We can drop files directly if we're scanning them in. This one document per page is quite useful. We can push 50 items through a scanner and drop them in. It will split them up into separate invoices and process them all for us. It will connect to suppliers, this invoice fetch system. So those larger organizations that have sort of portal logins. We can send it through an email. So everyone has their own @DextCC. And we just press the forward button, push it in, or we get suppliers to send invoices using that particular one, or snap it on the mobile. The mobile app is absolutely fantastic. When we receive paper-based stuff, we're always using the mobile rather than the scanner. But it is a fantastic piece of software. Here's a sort of an example. You've got sort of office supplies invoice here, and it's extracted all of this. We have this turned on, so it's what's called hands-free mode. So it will automatically take it from here and push it into the account software we use, which is Xero. This integrates with lots of other bits of accountancy software like QuickBooks, and some of I think the Sage Online product now. The integrations there. So we have it so it's we just allow it to make the decisions and push it through, and then we come back later and we give it a bit of education, and we sort of build up kind of what's called the supplier list. So it's automatically identifying things. So office supplies for you, we've noticed it's been putting them to general expenses, and actually why don't we put them to either that categories that exist in the demo, but something like office supplies, for example, and it will then always treat it the same way, and it will come through. We might say, to be honest, it's always office supplies we kind of buy from this person, so why don't we push it through to, rather than into drafts, into awaiting payment. So we've got the options, or if we know it was always paid by the American Express cards, we can always just tick that as well, and it will try and auto match if we want to go for that kind of full automation. It's a really, really kind of wonderful system, to be honest. And what that looks like is when we come into Xero. So I've just logged into our Xero this morning, and I've clicked on a purchase invoice. So we bought some milk yesterday for the office, real rock and roll type stuff. And you'll notice it's been emailed in from my wife, Sue. She's just literally pressed forward. She's not taken out a signature or anything like that. The order acknowledgements come through. Dext has automatically extracted the from, the date, due date. It's allocated a reference from it. It's attached the image, and it's split the screen up, so it's really easy for us to review. It's put the quantity in, it's got the unit price, but it's made a bit of a boo-boo with the VAT, and it's not got the account correct. So we might go back to Dext and say, well, actually, we want this to go to our refreshments nominal that we have on our accounts. We've got refreshments there, and obviously most of that stuff on there is food, because so it'll be probably coming into Xero rated expenses. But this is why I always want a human eye casting their eye over something, because I actually, off the top of my head, we've bought some sweeteners, and I'm not entirely sure what the VAT rules are on sweeteners, and there is no VAT breakdown on this piece of paper that's come in as well. So we might want to just go off and have a quick look at that. But it has obviously saved a huge amount of time. If I turned on the tool called multi-line item extraction, it would have actually broken out every single line, and it would have done the data entry for the description field automatically for us. So if you are using this, it's always a good idea to put in the description what it is you're buying, because on a system like Xero, it appears on the VAT audit report if you're VAT registered. So that's the thing, whoever reviews the VAT audit report, they're seeing the description tag coming through. So that's always really, really important to do that part of it. If anyone wants to have a go with Dext, we have a kind of a special agreement with them, and we can kind of give you the £50 a month version for £12.50. And if you want to have a month's play with it free of charge, we'll be more than happy to provide you with a license of it, just so you can have a bit of a play around with it and see whether it works for your business. So I mean, there are a couple of easy examples. I mean, processing purchase invoices using a system like this is an absolute doddle. And I must say myself, I was always historically terrible at dealing with those bits of paper. I've gone to the post office and bought some stamps, whereas now I just literally pull out the phone and take a photograph of it, and then I don't have a bookkeeper from my office saying, Justin, where's that piece of paper? Because I've already scanned it in, because it's just made it so easy. And you can obviously have your staff wandering around with the app on their phone, taking pictures and submitting stuff that they're buying as well, if in a larger organization, which is great. The next part of our little sort of journey around automation is I wanted to stop with Mailchimp. So I've just logged into our Mailchimp account, and I've gone into this thing called this little tab here called automations. And we're not using this part of it, but you can build up what's called customer journeys, which I think is really, really cool stuff. Identifying sort of people who've built up a shopping cart and then abandoned it. You know, if someone signs up to your mailing list, you can welcome them onto the mailing list. I particularly like this sort of say happy birthday idea. If you got people's dates of birth, you can send them out an automated birthday message. It's a lovely thing to do, and it's something I've always wanted to sort of get better at as an organization, and I suppose it's on my list of wishes that we want to get better at. I think very few people sort of get those birthday messages really as you get older, so it's always a nice thing to do. So customer journeys in Mailchimp are a great way of, you don't need to think about it. Once you set it up, you can sort of get it to run automatically behind the scenes. Mailchimp doesn't ask you. But if I just jump into campaigns for a second, I'll show you what we are doing. I go down to automations here. This is something that we are doing. So when someone signs a proposal with us on that practice ignition system, we identify which services that they're taking. And really how we're doing is we're segmenting them into different categories. So one of them is if they're taking a new company formation. I'll click into this one because I really like this one. It's really effective for us. We've not had it going that long. If I can go down here. So if someone forms a new company, they get an email immediately after they've accepted our proposal, basically saying, right, this is what's going to happen, is we're going to submit your application to Companies House within the next 24 hours. This is the person in our office who is dealing with it. This is how long it will take Companies House. Within 72 hours, we should receive your certificate of incorporation. Day 2, they get an email about banking. So it's been really difficult opening a bank account during the pandemic. So we partnered up with a provider who could do it like they're an online bank effectively, where they do verification through a mobile app, and they've got lots of sort of automations as well. But within that, so we recommend that they go and use that because it's obviously difficult to open a bank account. But we also tell them all of what will happen during that journey as well, what they'll be asked to provide. So they'll be asked for some sort of photographic ID, so make sure they've got that on hand and things like that, and obviously what the timescales are involved. And then another day later, they get an email about being company director. We've gone off to Company's House YouTube channel, and we've found all of their little 3-minute information videos. What's it to be a company director? In fact, I might be able to open that and show you what that looks like. In fact, if it will play the game with me. So yeah, we've just got the where is it? It will work for me. Here we go. Yeah, so being a company director, you know, who controls your company, explains about shareholding, what a confirmation statement is, and what are the annual accounts. It's pretty simple. They're an easy, quick sort of look. You know, it's amazing what we get asked of sort of new clients, not really knowing what the responsibilities of a director are and what, you know, what's the difference. I'm the shareholder and the director. What the hell is the difference, Justin? You know, it's just trying to avoid some of the same questions being asked time and time again. The other nice thing, if I go back to our other automations that we've got running in the background, if I just find my way back, I always find Mailchimp a little bit confusing to navigate around. There we go. Yeah, so a new client, what happens on our practice ignition system, and you see the 472 emails sent on this one. Here we are. And we have a series of 5 emails that are sent out, and we've just recently added the kind of the bottom 2. So we welcome the new client. We tell them who's best to deal with, what everyone does, what best channels of communication are after 3 days. Give them some tips after 6 days about record keeping and admin. 25 weeks, do you need any help or support? And this basically encourages them to book in using our 10 to 8 system. So what we're trying to do is capture sort of consultations with people before their year-end dates. So we're getting to the point where we're mid-year, where we can start talking to them about strategic purchases, tax planning, all of those kinds of things. And then we renew people every year, re-engage with them. So it gives us a chance to review whether we've got the pricing right with people. And they get an automated email just to say, look, this is what the renewal process with this will look like. And then if I go back a page, after the first year, we identify them as a renewing client, and they get another series. I'll not go into that one, but they get another series of emails of what that process. We probably need to do some more work on this. I feel it's, you know, a couple of years ago, this was really, really working well for us. Now we've had it going for a couple of years. I think people are getting the same message again. So I think it's an illustration of time management and coming back and having a look at some of these things as well. Right. The next thing I wanted to show you, just sort of coming towards the end of our little demo, is this piece of technology called Zapier. So Zapier is, you know, a tool which allows you to get pieces of software that don't talk to each other to talk to each other. And I've got an example to show you, and we're going to make what's called a Zap, and that's what they call them, is Zaps. And I think it will all become clear if I make a Zap of exactly how powerful it is. So if you imagine how you've got to us today to watch the webinar, you've gone onto the Zoom web capture form and you've filled in your details in order to be given the link for the Zoom. So I might think to myself, do you know what? Those people need to be added, as I was showing in my flowchart, to our mailing list, so they're aware of other events that we're doing. So I've already connected my account. So I've just connected up my Zoom account. I then choose what's called an event. So this is when something happens. So actually, I want to trigger this when someone registers for the webinar. We press continue. And I think people think this is complicated stuff on Zapier, and I don't think it is. We choose our account, so there's my account on Zoom. I then set up what's called a trigger. So this is when something happens. So typically, of course, the webinar has started, so it's disappeared, but we would see that the webinar in there for today's automation seminar, and then off you go. So we would choose if someone had integrated. Then the next step is what's going to happen next. So what we really want to do is put them into Mailchimp. So what we would do is we would choose Mailchimp, we'd choose an action. And what we want to do is add, update a subscriber. And again, I've just, all you do to connect your Mailchimp account or your Zoom account is you just provide your login details within the Zapier platform, and then it provides the connection. So I choose the orange umbrella Mailchimp account. I then choose my action, and what I want to do is I want to put this person onto our events mailing list. So I just find the event mailing list, and then we would put, it's just got some example data. I would obviously put the subscriber email address in. We can choose a double opt-in if we wanted to. We can choose to update the existing there's lots of options that we can do within here. We can get their, obviously the first name, put it into the mailing list, so we can obviously get that nice customization of the, so that hi just in at the top of the Mailchimp campaign. And that's more or less adding them to Mailchimp. We might then think, oh, do you want to know something? Why don't we then go a step further and let people know and send a Zapier message, sorry, not a Zapier message, a Slack message out to our team to let us all know that we've got a registration, so we don't have to continually log into Zoom to find out who. So what we'll do is we'll send a channel message. And again, I've just integrated our Slack account. We choose the account that we're using. And then again, we've got this setup action, very similar, but it's obviously there. And what we've got in here is, I was mentioning we had a new clients channel, there it is. But let's say for this one, we're going to do the general channel. And then we'd build up a message and you would say, hi, everyone. We have a new registration for the webinar. Oops. And then what you could do is open this box up from Zoom and say, John, XYZ, let's just register something like that. Just give you an example. So, and then you've got a few little options which are nothing sort of too complicated in there. And then you would save, and then you would turn the Zap on. And then what that Zap would do is it would just sit in the background, and it would just, as soon as anyone registered, it would add them to the mailing list, and it would also send that Slack channel message. We could take that many steps. So I'll show you another couple of examples just to get sort of the ideas going in your own brain. And here's a nice little thing down in the bottom left-hand corner. You can see that this month we've automated 949 tasks. I'm actually approaching our task limit, so I'm going to maybe have to upgrade our account. You can see there, I mentioned before, when someone's booking on the 10 to 8 appointment booking system, it's pushing them into Mailchimp. There's the Eventbrite one. Someone registers for one of our events on Eventbrite, it goes in. I've got this Zap here, which is automatically saving attachments from certain people into our Google Drive, into the right folder in Google Drive, because there was something that I was doing that was generating a lot of documents. Here we are, the Practice Ignition logo is there. If someone is taking a bookkeeping service, it sets it off and creates the Trello cards for people, same for new client Trello cards. This is the one which is creating our harvest time tracking categories. So it's creating new clients and projects in harvest. We've got payroll Trello cards being created. We're creating sales invoices from Google Sheets. we've got this cool thing, which I love this. If we're running Facebook lead ads where someone fills in their name, address, phone number, it will send me a text message to my phone of that person's number. I don't have to log into Facebook to get it. So I can literally just click the number and make the call. So within, if I'm free, if I'm free, then I can be making that phone call within moments of them making an inquiry with us, which obviously that's really setting the bar really, really high and impressing people. And here are our kind of new client processes, new company formations. There's lots of things that we're kind of getting this system to do. There's a bit of a commonality. If I show you what's going on with the new client one, that's quite interesting because it's a multi-step Zap that we've got running. So someone accepts a proposal, it only continues if, and how we do this is we work out how many, Practice Ignition allows us to see how many times they've renewed with us, and it gives what's called a proposal count. So we filter based on the proposal count. So if it's less than 2, we know that they're a new client. Practice Ignition puts their name in one field. So what we do is we use this little text tool to separate it out into a first name and second name. We put a delay in. Now, if you're building your own Zaps and you're pulling, you'll see Practice Ignition is appearing lots and lots of times on our Zap list. What we don't want to do is cause a clash. So you can't, if you're asking the API 4 different things at the same time, you could cause a bit of a problem. So what we try and do is build a little bit of a delay into everything. And that's really why I said there's a 2-minute delay between a new client accepting a proposal and us being notified on Slack. And I'll show you an example of that here on Slack. There's the action. There we are. And then we've got a message appearing there as well. And then what we do is we update the subscriber in Mailchimp, and there's 2 update subscribers in Mailchimp. And again, we put a delay in on this ever so slightly. I think it's only a minute or something like that. But we put them on, this first one is putting them onto our drip campaign. So they're going onto the new client drip campaign. The last step is putting them onto our events mailing list, so that's whatever events that we've got going on, they're being made aware of. Now we're also on other Zaps as well. For example, if we looked at our payroll Zap, you'd find that we're pulling people who have payroll as a service onto a separate mailing list called payroll. You may have heard of this thing called furlough, which has caused a bit of a pain in the backside this year for us accountants. What we've been doing is separating those people out onto their own mailing list to make sure whenever there is a change to the government's rules, we've been able to get that information straight out to them. So we're not having to think about data segmentation, it is just happening automatically. I mean, did this take me 5 minutes to do? No, it's taken me hours and hours and hours to build this up. But now it's running, it saves so much time. I mean, it is absolutely incredible how much time it does actually save. And there's another illustration of a segmentation. So people who are taking Xero, or what Dext used to be called Receipt Bank, that RB, we're segmenting those people as well. So again, we can get, if there's some information we need to get out specific about Xero or Receipt Bank, then we can do it. I think what I've also done is, by doing this segmentation, is we're not really there as a business. We're not big enough to necessarily need to worry too much about segmentation, but I've put it in now in the hope that it will future-proof us. So when it does become a problem, we automatically have the data segmented. It's no real great hardship to create a new mailing list on Mailchimp, and it's easy to identify the data, so why not do it now? Let's just have a couple of other looks in Zapier as well. If we look at our Zap history, Yeah, so these are the sorts of things that you sort of see going on. We've had a lot of proposal renewals in the last month, and you can see that renewing client Zap. This month it's run 476 times. There's the zero receipt bank users being added to the mailing list, bookkeeping Trello cards being created. These things are just obviously just happening. It's really good. And that one where I'm saving a lot of attachments, you can see 8 attachments, it is automatically saved for me, which is absolutely wonderful. So lots of things going on. Certain things aren't sort of haven't been run so far this month. I suppose we're sort of not in quite mid-month yet. But yes, it's just sitting in the background doing things for us, which is absolutely wonderful. Right, so that's probably it for the online demo. I'm just going to go back to my slides and show you a couple of final things, and then we will wrap up. So these are sort of some of the outputs that have come out into our Slack channels. So that one there, we have a new sign up from Justin Turner signed up. That was just an example of what would happen if we were identifying people. Obviously, that step before that, it would have put the data into Mailchimp as well. And then you can see that's what the output of our new client Slack channel into the new client channel. Well done, everyone. We won a new client. It would say something like Justin Turner from Orange Umbrella Limited has accepted our proposal for the first time. You can view the proposal here, and then they can click on that and they can view the full details of all the services that we've taken, or the client is taking with us. So everyone sort of in the team is kind of really on board. It's one of the things that, going back to listen to the frustrations of clients when they come in initially, is they say, oh God, no one knows who I am when I bring up our previous accountants. I've listened very, very carefully to that, and I don't want that to happen. Everyone needs to know who people are. We need to be really welcoming of them. And that's just part of our process. And we need to be knowledgeable as well, be able to find the information quickly as well. I think, one of my main pain points, I've discussed I've mentioned a few things that aren't going overly well. I suppose, drip campaign content, it takes a while to build it up and it needs updating. I'd say that's my main problem at the moment, is I really need to revisit that content and change it and improve it and bring it a bit more up to date. I noticed the other day, a client had actually responded to me following a drip email that had gone out, and it still said Receipt Bank, even though it had changed its name. So I was just thinking, that needs a bit polishing up. I keep mentioning it takes time to manage this software. It doesn't take vast amounts of time. It's got that upfront sort of time that you need to commit into it, but once it's running, you do need to sort of go and revisit it. I find building Zaps really easy and fast to do. Things like updating content, that's a whole task in itself. The other thing, don't forget this when dealing with automation as well, is customers and clients want to deal with humans for the important stuff. That's what our whole mission is all about. Is we're doing the boring admin stuff through automation to allow us so we can actually deal with our customers and speak to them on the phone. I think there's a big problem in the industry that when you're dealing with big companies, you just can't get hold of anyone. They don't want to speak to you on the phone. Oh, you haven't bought Zoom. We had a problem support issue. Oh, no, you're not on the right package to deal with for a telephone call. You have to do the online chat. Oh God, the day we get an online chat on our website is the day I give up. It's not how I want to run my business. And I think, don't forget that people want to deal with people. The other big problem is we've got a hell of a lot of software in our organization, and our new staff starters, they can get really overwhelmed by the quantity of software that oh my God, just not another piece of software that we're using. So we try now just to sort of give people sections of software and keep it limited and slowly educate them over time. The kind of initial stuff is communication, and then we can kind of show them the big picture later down the line. So that's it for today. I hope that's been interesting. I always find it a bit difficult doing online demo stuff because you have to have your wits about you a little bit. So maybe not as polished as I normally would be. So if anyone's got any question, happy to unmute. Questions in the chat box, however you so wish to do it. Michael, I've allowed you to speak. I imagine.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yes.
Okay, so I just love what you did with Zapier there.
Right.
And immediately I thought, right, I have a big webinar